Happy Thursday, everybody. Look at this wild ride we had today. We had a CPI release. Futures were in the sell zone. Red lines are the sell zone. Green lines are the buy zone. And look what happened. Dump. Okay. So you can see from the red sell zone came all the way to green zone. First dump here, then a bounce. So you made 1.34% shorting. Then you can buy on the green lines and then you can sell on neutral line, 0.6% dump. Then you wait again to buy in the sell zone and then look at what happened after that, 1.34%. So in one day you can make money downside and the upside. Same thing here, S&P 500. Even if you just go on one side, let's say if you only want to short or if you only want to go long, you just wait for this to go in green line, right? You can just wait for it to go in green line. As it approaches neutral line, you just sell. So profits here. Again, green line, you take profits near neutral line, or if you can hold, you take your original investment out, or you can let your profits run. 0.99% easy trades one day. You can make easy 2% trade. What else you need? Every day you can make 1 to 2% easy trades here. Dow Jones, you can see here, sell zone and bounce. So from sell zone, a bounce take 0.87%. Russell 2000, you can see went way deep below in second and third standard deviation. So you can see from here, easy bounce to 1.39%. Look at all these commodities. Gold came to buy zone. Easily it's staying in the buy zone for the whole session, like almost 11 a.m. to 1 to almost 2 p.m. You can see 3 hours in the sell buy zone. You can see from buy zone bounce 1%. Silver, same thing, came to the buy zone. You can see bounce from buy zone to almost 2% bounces here. All right, so natural gas, same thing here. You can see buy zone to bounce. Very, very nice. 7% trade. Bitcoin, massive news on freaking spot ETF. And look what happened from sell zone dump. You can see if you shorted Bitcoin from the sell zone and the dump, 6.81%. So anyhow, guys, easy trades here. And if you guys want to know more about this indicator, you can subscribe to my channel. There's a link in the description of this video. And yeah, I share this with my subscribers, these buy and sell ranges. And on my Discord, there's also a link you can join for free. There's a private section. If you pay for YouTube access, then I will get you access on the Discord, and I share more details. I share other stocks also which I'm buying in that private access group. Okay, so yeah, and it's very cheap. I think a subscription is like $8 a month, which is very, very cheap. One trade you can make way more than for the whole year. All right, so this is the scene with Russell 2000, S&P 500, and Nasdaq. So let's quickly go through hourly chart and let's see what gaps were formed today. And let's see how we can analyze market, and I will analyze with you. So anyhow, so Tesla gap down. All right, so let's put a gap here with market with yellow. Okay, so now Tesla has three gaps, one, two, and three, and it came very close to this gap fill, which is here, right here, around 224. That's my target to buy. It came very close. I had my buy orders there. It never executed. Why? Because it came closer and it was 0.32% short of this gap fill. Okay, I'll be placing my orders again today on this green line, and let's see if it can buy tomorrow, right? Let's see if it can buy tomorrow. But anyhow, these are the three gaps on Tesla. Let's quickly scan some of the major stock and indexes. Triple Qs, no gaps here. This gap, all gaps are filled. One thing to know on Triple Q, just so that you know, this is a big resistance, this area, right? If I draw a box, Triple Q, something like this, right? Big resistance. So you can see what happened. Gap down, and this is also a gap here. We're just back testing. Looks like we back tested and we failed. Again, we are back testing. If it failed here, definitely we're going to fill this gap at 396, and then there's another major gap here on 385. Okay, so be very careful here. Just be mindful that this could be backtesting resistance before we get a failure, and we go and fill this gap around 396, around 397. All right, so be very cautious here. You don't want to be buying at all-time highs. Okay, you're going to be buying. You want to be buying at low. You want to be buying here when it was all red. People are thinking it's crashing. This is where you want to buy. You don't want to buy on green lines here, all right, or here. All right, so CNQ, no gaps here. Let's quickly look at some major indices. SPY, no gaps. Apple, no gaps. Netflix, gap up. So gaps do get filled and it just gapped up. So I'm gonna mark this as a green line here. I'm gonna delete this resistance area, okay? But anyhow, so there's a gap up, this gap will get filled. So we're just analyzing it. Microsoft has no gap and Google, no gaps. Also going above this area, but that's okay. Meta, no gaps. So I'm gonna delete this. Amazon, again, gap up, but came down to fill that gap. Snowflakes, no gaps here. So that's okay. Nvidia, no gaps, but there's still a couple of gaps here. I'm gonna make this green, all right. And AMD, also no gaps. And then last thing I'm gonna do is quickly check at uh, and this is Dow Jones and IWM. This gap is still not filled. Let's quickly see this. All right. Oops. All right. And the Newmont mine going towards this gap, fill a couple of gaps. So it looks like they want to fill bottom gap here. Gold miners, you can see it filled this gap very nicely. So thank you. Now there's another gap here. All right. So it's below this trend line. So that's not a good news. So it looks like it wants to go lower on this to get to this 27 bucks now. XLK, all right. This gap is filled. You can see massive gap up in the morning, not gap up, fill this gap. So gap is done. This gap is left now. I think we might be coming down all the way to fill this bottom gap now. XLE, nothing changed. XLV, nothing changed. Utilities, gap down. And actually, this gap is still not filled. Yeah, this gap is not filled. So we're going to add another gap here. So gap down. We're going to mark top gaps with yellow lines. Industrial sector, nothing to do here. Real estate, no gaps. Financials, no gaps. KRE, also gap down, another gap down here. So here you go. Uh, Financials, real estate, industrials have no gap. Shopify also have no gap, and then Boeing, no gaps. And then let's quickly look at Bitcoin. Where did Bitcoin go? Here you go, futures. No gap on Bitcoin futures and Ethereum futures. Still, this gap is here, so it's going to come back to 2552 at minimum. All right, so let's go to daily chart and let's try to analyze SPY. Let's go to daily. Let's add an indicator here. This moving averages, and let's see how things are progressing. So SPY looks like it did make a new high, so new all-time high, but there's big divergence here, all right? So just be careful, guys, because it's going higher on a big divergence. So it did close below. So this is like a hammer. So this could be a reversal signal here as well. Okay, so this could be a reversal signal. We might be going down. So be careful. You can see this hammer here, right on the top here. That's also quite possible. The good news is it's still holding above this green line, which is support line. So they try to came below, it came below that, and immediately buyer stepped in to bounce. So still chart, there is no damage to the chart. It's above all moving averages. Just be careful because now there are no gaps to the top. There's a gap here, there's a gap here, there are multiple gaps here, okay? So just be careful also because we have divergence on RSI. So be very, very careful bull, okay? And also it is at new all-time high. You don't want to be buying at all-time high. You want to be buying at low when the background of this RSI is red. You don't want to be buying at new highs. Triple Qs, again similar candle, but again I showed on one hour chart. Still, again, this is also above all moving averages, no chart damage to the chart. Came back, tested this green line, and then bouncing now. Again, if you get a new high, it's going to be divergent high. And be careful, we could be coming down to fill this couple of gaps as well. Um, Sorry guys, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this with an arrow here. You can see massive divergence. Even we make a new high, it's going to be on a divergent high. All right. So be careful on triple Qs as well. And let's see Dow Jones. Dow Jones also new highs. I think new high, yes, with divergence. Same story on these three big indices, and then IWM trying to, okay, so it looks like it's breaking down here. So it not able to close above this white line, which is 20 moving average, and it's just trying to break down now. So Russell is telling you, maybe giving you a heads up, warning sign. If it fails here, it could come all the way down to fill this gap. Okay, the gap is around 176. Now remember, there are also above two gaps, so if they pump, they might fill these two gaps very quickly. And let's look at, let's keep going through other stocks. Tesla, uh, again, below this 200 SMA, which is very bearish. You can see here below 200 SMA, we went here down, 200 SMA, 8% down. Here also we came below 200 SMA. So it keeps just going down. 1 hour chart keeps going down, slight divergence, but if it keeps going down, that's not good indication. And chart is looking really bearish, guys, because I see no support. This looks like a flag, bear flag trying to go down. Uh, where can we find support here? I think if I draw a box on Tesla, what about this area here? What about this area? So if I'm gonna put this down here, and then we'll move this one down here. Okay, this whole area could act as support. All right, so let's all right, so if you go down there, that could be the area where you might want to buy Tesla. So around 217 to 200 area, things are not looking that good. Now, one thing to note, you this chart here, massive down. Like, let's go to weekly chart. All right, let me hide this. So you can see this U inverted V flag bounce. So this could be a bigger flag. We have seen similar like this here. You can see here we have flag, 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 flag. It just keeps going down. It goes below this previous low. It can still go around 7% down. Okay, so this previous low is here. So let's see if we can try to make something out of it. So let's assume this. Oh, so it can still go below this low. All right. So just be mindful of that it can still go below this low if we take this chart as a consideration of anything. But I think the long-term thing you have to remember that once the bounce happens, it just ramps up. So from here, it could ramp up 114%. All right. So you can see we get a lot of in V's on Tesla chart. V here, go down, bounce, and a lot of times we consolidate and then bounce. So I think same thing is here. You go down, bounce, consolidate, bounce, and like I think this we're just consolidating, and we will get the bounce, but I don't know when. From my perspective, now there are a couple of bigger gaps here. I don't think we're gonna go that low, but this first gap is definitely in sight. And right now, from today's close, this first gap is only 1%, so it can fill as soon as tomorrow. So keep an eye, and right now it's right on this trend line. Uh, but if it goes below that, that's not going to be good. So even if it fills this gap tomorrow, I want this to close above this trend line. I don't know if it will happen, but keep your options open. Talked about triple Qs, crude oil. Nice move today. Nice move. Trying to go above. Facing resistance on this daily 50 SMA and EMA. Still near resistance area. So let's see if it fails here. It's going to break down. Gold. Nice bounce. You can see exactly what I said. Right bounce, right bouncing from here. So this could be it. This could be the dip we were looking for gold. Gold might be getting ready for a massive pump from here. Silver, you can see how nicely it came to this trend line. I did some trading on silver today. Nice trade. Came right on this trend line and now bouncing. So even if it slightly did not touch it, so if tomorrow comes and touches it, that's another opportunity. Natural gas, kind of a indecision candle. If he wants to close up, that's a decision made. If it closes down, then we're going down. But I think seasonality is telling me more weakness should be coming. Dollar in the resistance, still not able to close above that. So you can see it went all the way in the resistance, sold down. Looks like it wants to go down lower right now between resistance and support. Bitcoin, I already told you, new highs with divergence. It's a divergent high. I think it needs to cool down. In my opinion, it's gonna go down. And if I go to BTC, here, BTC futures, this gap you see, I think that's gonna come sooner than later. So if it go down, it could go around 15% down. Remember that. Ethereum, there's a gap here that will definitely be filled 25.52. The other gap from here is around 30% below. Okay, so be very careful on crypto. Massive divergence are a warning sign. So if you're watching this video, you have to be very, very, very careful on crypto. Toronto Stock Exchange closed below this 10 moving average, but finding support on this 20 moving average. So let's see. Again, divergences, new highs is a divergent high. Same story on all indices. Looks like they need some kind of a cool down. So you have to be very careful. You don't want to be buying near new all-time highs. Okay, Hang Seng Index back test and now bouncing. So if it bounces here, then this could be the bottom. So everything is looking okay. Bond by the dip. So it looks like this cycle is telling me we might need another little bit of dip here. So let's see if we can get a little bit drop here. Copper by the in the resistance area, but this is where you want to be buying copper. Okay. Uh, this is again, you can call it as a support or resistance. Sometimes it's gone a bit lower, but we can call it as support. So let's mark it as green line. So let's see if it can bounce from here. Palladium also back testing and bouncing. Soya beans holding it very nicely with divergence, so looking okay. Wheat just chopping around, everything is looking okay. Corn also trying its best to hold here and still divergence, okay. So wait for this to close above this red line, which is around 4.65, and when that happens, it's going to be bullish. Sugar green just chopping around, looking for a new low to be honest. So let's see if we can get that. Um, what else is here? Apple, so this could be Apple is facing resistance, multiple moving average. I'll be surprised if Apple can close above that. There's a gap here, remember guys, gap up this day here exactly on Monday. So if Apple falls from here, it could be going all the way down to 2.34%. So be very careful going long here. It's getting ready for a perfect short setup. Even Netflix has a couple of gaps, green gaps to the downside. Microsoft has also gaps. You can see all these are making new highs on divergences. Google new high on big divergence. Meta, Facebook new high on divergence with multiple gaps on the downside. Amazon new high on a divergence. You can see here. So all these mega cap are going higher on a divergence. So you have to be very, very careful. Snowflakes looks like rejected here, coming to fill this gap soon. I think around 189. Nvidia also new high, no divergence, but you can see very, very overbought short term, light green background. AMD also could be a double top. Looks like it wants to come to fill this gap around 138. All right. Uh, Biggest gold miner looking to fill this gap 36.71. GDX broke this trend line. Next target 27.41. So tail of two markets. XLK also a couple of gaps to the downside. XLE kind of flat. The next target is this gap fill around 84.39. Healthcare still managed to close flat. Look to buy all the dips. Looking very bullish. Uh, and no divergence yet, so that's good. XLU utility sectors down 2.3%, which is pretty rare. But next target is this gap fill around 62.44. XLI industrial sector holding it, but finding resistance on this green line 10 moving average. If it rejects here, next target is here 108. Real estate sector gap up, gap down in the middle. Uh, Maybe it will come down here. Okay, financial sector also finding support on this moving average. White line 20 moving average. First time closed below green line 10 moving average, and there's a gap around 2037. So maybe it will fill that gap and then come down. Regional bank ETF below all moving averages, green and white. So maybe it's getting ready for a pullback below. Shopify new highs on a divergence, so be very, very, very careful. Let's look at Boeing just for the sake of, because I'm very interested in Boeing. got rejected, massive candle. Uh, oh, there's a gap here. Why I did not mark it? Hold on. Let me mark this gap on Boeing. Uh, this gap, how did I miss this? So there's a gap here on Boeing, so it looks like that will be filled. That's the next target, I think, to be honest, from my perspective. Zoom in. Yeah. Anyhow, going back to daily chart. Uh, yeah, looks like a massive dump coming, couple of gaps from where we are right now. First gap 6.24, other gap 11.24% away. So Pfizer broke out, back test, 1 hour chart. This gap is filled. Can I mark this as a gap? Barely any gap. Here you go. You can mark it as yellow, and then let's see what else is here. Yeah, there are a couple of gaps down. That's fine as well. CVS, UNH, daily chart, nothing here. All right. Banks. Let's quickly look at banks. Royal Bank. Let's go to 1 hour chart. Let's see any banks have BMO. No gaps. You can try to say, you can try to force a gap here. Here you go. All right. TD. Ah, this gap is filled, so I can delete this. Why did I put this gap? Is it today? Slight gap, so I'm gonna leave it there. BNS. Actually, I have to mark this as a yellow gap because this is a top gap, so you're gonna mark it as a yellow gap. BNS. This gap is filled, so you can delete this. CM. Again, this gap is to the top side. This is CIBC. There you go. And the National Bank. Oh, this gap is filled. You can see how nicely gaps do get filled. And the other one is CP Real. Nice, interesting gap. There is no gap actually. So CP Real is looking very interesting now. And then CNI. Okay, and XOM, no gaps. And Bridge, this gap is filled. All right, so you can see CP Rail, that could be my next, but it's still a bit higher. So I want it a little bit more, couple of gaps to be filled, and then that will be, you can see when it goes higher with gaps, they do come back to fill these gaps, okay? So TD Bank daily chart looking very nice. You can see if you draw a trend line, something like this, right? Something like this. You can draw some trend line like this, coming very close to the support here. And if I add moving averages, just to get an idea, it's below all moving averages, which is not a good news, but it is what it is. And then Royal Bank, that's the biggest Canadian bank, also finding support. Massive divergences everywhere. Alibaba. Anyhow, okay, so I'm gonna delete this. And yeah, that's it for today, VIX. In the buy zone, guys. So VIX is coming in the buy zone, so that's we have to be careful. VIX can bounce from here, so just be careful. If you're bull, just be very, very careful. This is near new highs, all right? Okay, let me see if anybody have any questions. Could you please review Macy's? Okay, let's review Macy's. Siva. MACY. Macy's. What is this chart? No volume. Um, wow. Is this the right one? Macy's. MACY. Wait, what is the symbol? MACYS. YS. Hmm. I don't see Macy's in US, US dollar, SIVA. Oh, M. I think this is the one. Okay. Yeah, this is better. You can see, I don't know, maybe somebody asked me and there was a gap here. I marked it with green line and it got filled. So that's a good news. I can delete this. But if I go to 1 hour chart, um, You can see what's happening here. Let's gonna mark it with some yellow lines first to show the gaps, and then green lines at the bottom for the bottom gaps. And this gap you can delete it. There are multiple gaps here on this chart. So you can see here, there's a gap here, there's a gap here, there's a gap here, there's a gap here. All right. Um, Now you can see this new high, no divergence. All right. And then let's add moving averages. Uh, Now you can see this big gap here. It looks like it wants to come down to fill this gap at minimum, that 17.45. It looks like it wants to come and fill that gap around 6% down. All right. So, and then if I hide this and just cut delete, you can see this was a big resistance here, right? You can see I marked this. You can see this was a support before, this whole area, and now it became a big resistance here. So I can make a resistance as red. You can see here this whole area is a big resistance, which was support here, now acting as a resistance. Now there's some support here near the gap fill, so I think they want to bring it here. So you can make this green. All right. So you can see this whole area is here. This is the support area, and with the gap fill. So I think what they want to do they want to put a little bit more down, and I do expect a little bit pullback on S&P 500. So I think that will bring Macy's down. This area around 1745 is a good area to buy, and then it should bounce after that, right? I think that makes sense. And even if I add moving averages, you can see that's where this rising 50 daily SMA and EMA are coming, and then also 200 EMA is also going there. So a lot of support will be here when it goes down, and that will be a next buying opportunity before it bounces higher. All right. Okay. Anything else? If nothing else, then I'm gonna close this and add my indicator and go to Tesla, extended hours, make sure my chart is right and ready, and save this. There you go. Now Nasdaq is just in the middle, doing nothing. S&P 500 in the middle, doing nothing. Dow Jones a little bit higher. US 100 higher. I'm really interested to buy Tesla. Um, the reason is I think this stock it was down. If I go Tesla TSLA, you can see it was down 225.05, and you can see came to very close to my buy target. So I'm going to put an order right now for 224.58, and I'm going to hold. I can just remember Nasdaq can still go lower because there's a gap here around triple Q's around 397. Okay, this will be filled. So if they want to dump Nasdaq 3% down, that's quite possible. All right, 3% down will be on S&P, or uh, text sector will be how much down? It's going to be around 16,300 or something like that. All right, so just be mindful of that. All right. Palantir, okay, last one before I go to sleep, Siva. Okay, PLTR, Palantir. Okay, somebody also asked about this. So I had this arrow and then it went there. So I can delete this. Um, and then I'll add. Okay, it's near 200 moving average, which is very good time to buy. So if you dip a little bit more below, look to buy here. That's always a good sign to buy near 200 SMA. There are a couple of gaps here. This gap here, massive, massive gap here, massive gap up. This maybe earnings gap, another gap here, and then there are a couple of gaps to the top side. Here you go. Oops, what happened? And then I'm done here. That's it. Go to daily chart. So you can see there are multiple green gaps here, and looks like this gap, massive gap, this was an earnings gap around 14.96, and there's a gap here around 17. So if it goes up, fill this gap. I think they're gonna fill these two. Bottom gap, I'm not worried about. This gap here around 17, 14.96, that's the one I want to be buying at. And if it dump here around this, around 200 SMA, so that's around 10% down. Okay, so if it comes here, this will be filled at some point, this gap here, 14.96. Whenever that fills, I'll be buying. But short term, they can put up higher. There's another gap here around 20. Right now, it's below all moving averages. This could be like a back test before they fail and then fill this gap. So be very careful. I don't like this chart. It's making lower highs, lower lows instead of higher highs, higher lows. So it's in a downtrend. So this could again, it can fill this gap around 17.11. So they might want to fill this gap tomorrow, 2.78%, and then reject it and go all the way down. There are a couple of gaps, 16.03 and then 14.96. So these two gaps are there. So they could reject it. So be careful here on Palantir. All right, that's it for today. And I'm gonna go back to my settings before I sign off. Uh, and then I'm gonna add on extended moving averages, sorry, extended hours. Go back to Tesla, zoom in, go to Nasdaq 100, save it. That's it. All right, thank you guys. I'll see you tomorrow pre-market. Bye.